This is a Two Front podcast.
You got a crooked smile, well that don't bother me much. You double over, working double time, you double tough. I'll just shine it up until the sun hit like a glare. I gotta dare, get the fuck up out the chair.
Dr. Colin Barbaro built a 10-practice dental group while raising 5 kids and managing to have 2 family meals every day. He partnered with his brother, who's also a dentist, and transformed from an implant-focused dentist into a visionary leader who champions relationship-based care. He's got a no egos philosophy, which I really resonate with, that came from hard lessons, including having to clean a disaster practice he had just purchased until 3 a.m. before his daughter's birthday. Now he practices just 2 days a week, and Colin mentors other dentists while blocking sacred family time from 5:30 to 8:30 every day of the week. One quick tip, he's ditched company-wide emails for video messages to his whole team. Colin proves that you can successfully work with family to accelerate your business growth and to be personally fulfilled. Dr. Colin Barbaro, welcome to The Happy Dentist.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. As I told you, disclaimer, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm excited to learn along the way with you here.
Oh, well, I'm really excited to have you on. Just some quick background on why the team thought that you'd be an awesome guest. So,
Yeah.
our whole goal here is to really share with our listeners, with dentists, honestly, all over the world at this point, of all sorts of backgrounds. We've got dental students who come in. We have, young dentists in their 30s and 40s. We've got generational dentists, who are following us and commenting regularly in their 60s and 70s. We just want to share your story. Personal interest on my end is that you are someone who was able to grow a business and have a family, and family is one of your biggest priorities. And I'm one of 5, like I mentioned.
That's awesome.
We had a family where I never basically sat down at dinner with my parents because there was no
Yeah.
time. Come from a family of, neurologists and family practitioner. And basically, the short story is they were either seeing patients during the day or doing charts and running the business at night. So we were basically left to fend for ourselves and eat McDonald's every night.
Yeah.
Love my
Yeah.
parents. They did the best they can, but I'm really interested in sharing with our audience, how you are able to balance it all, growing group of practicing and
Yeah.
balancing your family. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That.
let's start
Thanks so
there.
much for the question. Yeah, for sure. It's funny, but there's that quote: "There's no such thing as balance, like balance, just harmony." And I definitely feel that. There's no balance. There's things that you put energy towards, and that is the thing you concentrate on the most for a period of time until you start to realize that that's getting way out of harmony with the other aspects of your life, and then you kind of recalibrate, reorganize, and go from there. Yeah, family is definitely the most important thing to me. My brother is my business partner, and I wouldn't be on this journey if that wasn't the case. It's if I'm going to spend this much time with somebody, I want it to be family. I met my wife in dental school. She's a dentist. We practiced together for a while before we had too many kids to make that harmony and balance work for her. So she's at home right now, but she assures me she's not retired. She's just taking a hiatus. Um, but yeah, so I think that you make it work by just consistently feeling what pressure is needs your attention the most. And sometimes I think that is work, and it's something that I've had to learn along the way is being able to communicate ahead of time to let my family, my wife, whoever know, like, okay, we're going to be at a busy time during these few weeks. What does the schedule look like? Where can I be? How can I organize myself to make sure I'm meeting those needs? Um, there's a book called Radical Candor, and I forget the author's name, but she worked for a bunch of big companies, including Apple and Google, and she talked about just for her, she had to make a promise to herself that she was going to be home for 2 meals a day for her kids, and that really resonated
Mm,
with me. And so that is something that I make sure I do as well. So it doesn't mean that I won't have work that I have to do at night after I put the kids down. But like I like to wake my kids up in the morning, so I make sure that I'm up early, get some stuff I need to get done, wake my kids up, feed them breakfast, and then make sure that I'm home for dinner. And at this point, my oldest is almost 11. She's involved in a ton of sports, so it's not often that we're all at the table together, but it's not typically because my wife or I am not there. Um, and so I think that kind of what do I do to make sure that happens is I cut a lot of the stuff out of the time frame that people might want to be in. So like from 5:30 to 8:30 is strictly family time on my schedule. So I won't take calls. I won't do things that involve work at all during that time. And then after 8:30, you know, I'll be up, or people are up early and they want to chat early. I'm good with that too. And then obviously during the workday. But um, yeah, and then from a practice standpoint, I'm practicing 2 days a week right now. And so I see patients on Mondays and Thursdays, and then the other days are combination of meetings and mentorship days for a lot of our other docs. Tuesdays is a big mentor day for me, and so I'm constantly booking time with our other dentists to try and help them do procedures or take on cases that they want some mentorship with. I think that that's what our group does the best, to be honest with you. Is we just set apart a ton of intentional time to do that. So scheduling is really important for me. And then just kind of knowing my priorities. My wife is awesome about kind of keeping that stuff in the front of my vision as well. And just kind of reinforcing that. Um, and so yeah, huge to constantly be reflecting on that and trying to keep every priority at the forefront of your mind so that you're just attacking the things that are most important. But obviously, I don't have it all figured out. I can assure you that. Um, and uh, and it's definitely some days are wins and some days are losses there.
I mean, but that's life, right? I've got so many
Yeah, yeah,
questions for you. I mean, you're not even 40, right? And
correct. Yeah,
you're closing on your 10th practice on Friday.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you've got 5 kids, and you're able
Yes.
to eat 2 meals a day with your kids. Like, I'm sorry, but that is a huge win. Like, that is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
huge,
Well,
huge win.
I
So I know you're
appreciate it.
working on things every single day. You know, I'm curious. So you met your wife in dental school. Did you always know that you were going, so your obviously family is at the core of everything. It's in your business, it's obviously at home, it's your number one priority. And at work, you're also with family. Did you know when you were in dental school that you were going to start your group? First of all, did you know you were gonna start a group practice? Is that something you
No,
knew?
no, not at all. Yeah, that was
So
something
how
that
did that come
organically happened.
about?
Yeah. Great question. So when I right before I got into dental school, I was doing some research with a mentor, and he was a prosthodontist and did a lot of implant research. Fell in love with implants before I ever got into dental school. Um, Initially thought I wanted to specialize and kind of get into your journey and realize that I wanted to be a general dentist, but I wanted implant training to be a big part of my at least post dental school training and then into my practice. And so I think I had these visions of like a Dennis Tarnow type doc or something like that. Anyway, so I went out to residency in San Antonio and spent a year there at the VA hospital. It was an awesome experience. Um, definitely the best dental experience in training that I could have gotten. And I was still kind of on this journey that I was going to be this implant guru, this implant dentist obsessed with implants. Took a job in San Antonio. My wife was out of practice there and started working in that office. And then we had our first daughter out there. We got pregnant with our second daughter out there. And we were like, what are we doing in Texas? We're either going to make it work out here or we're going to get back to North Carolina. And so came back to North Carolina. My brother Justin had just taken over a practice in Selma, North Carolina, which is a teeny tiny town about 30 minutes outside of Raleigh. Um, and I was looking for a practice at the time. And under this idea that, yeah, I was going to take over a practice, I knew that I needed to be closer to the city at least to be able to have patients that valued implant dentistry and could afford the treatment. Um, and then while I was doing that, he was like, well, look, man, we've got some space here. And I was offering some services that he wasn't providing. And he was like, do you want to just practice here a couple days a week while you're figuring this out? I said, yeah, that'd be awesome. So started working with him 2 days a week. And then we just kind of had a number of things that worked out that put group practice at the forefront of our vision. He had come from a larger group practice in the area, and so had kind of his first taste of that. Other than that, our only knowledge of dentistry was our dad. In North Carolina, just doesn't have, or at least at the time, didn't have much kind of true corporate dentistry, true group practice dentistry. Um, and we felt like we had something to offer in terms of the relationship based side of care. And so much of the reason that family um, informs my life is because relationships are super important to me, like just deep relationships and spending a lot of my time and investment in that. And I take that same philosophy to patient care. That's really what fills me up. And I think that that's not for every patient. Some patients are like, look, dude, you're just my dentist. Like, do the thing and I'm going to get out of here. And if you don't take my insurance, great. And others are like, no, this is a relationship. Like, I really care about you. You changed my life. And those are the things that make me happy, right? I think that everybody needs to find their own purpose in dentistry, but that's definitely part of mine. And so we started talking about how could we offer something to the industry that we don't feel like is there. And it was this just really going in deep on this relationship based care side of things, knowing that dentistry was going to change. We were not going to be able to be the same dentist that our dad was. And so that led us to organically a couple of practices, like one at a time, just older docs who had similar philosophies that were retiring. Um, and then it just had some kind of organic growth from that. And then we were at 4 or 5 practices and we were kind of like, oh shit, this is like a whole nother job. And we are practicing dentistry full time. And then we started to have to get really organized around like, okay, we can't do the things that we say we want to do well if we're trying to do all of this. And so then you have to scale back from the dentistry. And that's such a hard thing. I know you've done that as well. And I'm sure everybody has their journey in that, but so much of our identity is wrapped up in patient care. And just trying to reframe that of like, okay, well, I don't necessarily have to be the person that treats the patient to have an influence on patient care. I think that's why people get into teaching, and kind of adopting that mentality to it. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that we fell into it. We were purposeful in knowing that we were going to take on more practices, but um, we've just learned more and more along the way and kind of realized almost serendipitously where we were at in this journey. And like, okay, if we want to continue to do this better, then we've got to put some more intention behind this system and really do better here because this is where we're falling short. And so, yeah, so now we're at 10 practices and just continuing to learn in that growth journey and falling forward and making mistakes and learning from it and hopefully doing better every time we learn.
You know that sinking feeling when the same patient keeps coming back for crown after crown? Yeah, we've all been there. Here's the thing. What if we could actually prevent all that mess with a simple bite correction? That's where we come in at Two Front. We handle the whole Invisalign process for you. I'm talking zero ClinChecks, zero lab bills, barely any chair time. Oh, and we take on the liability too. Your patient gets a healthy bite that'll save them thousands down the road. You get to be the hero who prevented years of dental drama. It's honestly a no-brainer. Check out Two Front and start helping your patients dodge a lifetime of dental work today. Something that and by the way, I'm totally the same as you. Like until I was basically 30 years old, like my entire focus from 8 years old to 30 was like, how do I become the best orthodontist I can possibly be
Yeah.
and have the best relationships with my patients? So, it's one of those kind of like reminders that like life, you have no idea where life's going to take you.
Yeah,
And
definitely
like
not.
you
Definitely not.
like discovered like you can make as big of an impact and be happy about it not treating patients, which is just a crazy thought for like any dentist who have ever considered that. Like, and you can be
For
even
sure.
more satisfied because you're like, I'm making more of an impact through leadership. So, one thing that I think is like has been critical to my success, and I'm curious how this has impacted you, is pre building my company and just practicing. My whole life was basically about me. How do I get better?
Yeah.
How do my skills get better? What do I do to build a practice, right? And something that I've now learned is like the impact I'm able to have is not through me, it's through the people I bring in around me. And that's been a huge, huge mindset shift over the past half decade for me. For you, it sounds like, first of all, your wife is a dentist and obviously the mother of your kids on one
Yeah.
side. Then you've got your brother who is your business partner. So you've got these two key relationships. I'm curious, what have you learned? How do you build okay, specifically what do I wanna ask? Have you always had great communication with both of these key stakeholders in your life? Or are there any communication lessons or collaboration lessons that you've learned to be able to get as far as you have?
Yeah, I'm glad my wife is not chiming in here. Yeah, no, it's funny, but I think of myself as a good communicator. I think what I've learned through this journey, both with my family and my work, is that I am a good inspirer. Like my talent is probably more around being super passionate. I'm a very intense person. I'm very passionate. Like about everything I do that I believe in, you're gonna feel it. And so that is a good litmus test, right? Because if you're on board with me, then you're fucking on board and we're going. But if you're not, then you're not going to get involved with me. You're going to be doing something else. And so I don't ever have to bring you into my sphere. So that creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, I'm a good communicator. But
Mm,
you learn when you're not a good communicator, when people who you know are on board with you are confused about next steps. And so
mm,
I think that I'm really good at communicating my value system and my vision and where things are going to go. But as somebody who runs a company, it's amazing how many things can get lost in poor outlining of communication. Like, did he just say that because he was thinking that? Or is that like a new system and we need to document that and tell people what's going to happen next and what the timeline is for that? And I think that that has been a huge learning curve for us because early on, you think so many things are just solved by an email. It's like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, we're doing this now because I sent an email to 10 people and told them this is what we're doing. And then it doesn't happen, or it happens for a week and then doesn't happen. And then you get pissed off. And then you realize, oh no, I told them what I wanted to do, but I didn't create the system around that. And that's true for both work and family. Um, something that especially my wife challenges me on all the time is like, you want to say yes to all these things, but you're underestimating the time resource it takes to get from work to here to pick up your kids. And so, working on our own family systems of like, okay, well, if you're going to say yes to that, have you thought about the time allocation? And have you thought about what time you need to leave work or when you're going to take your last meeting? Is that going to be in the car on the way? What do you need to do to make sure that can happen so that you can be there on time? And that is a constant struggle for me is thinking I can always do more. Um, and so overcommitting and then kind of under communicating along the way of like, oh, I actually, we're going to have to push this timeline or we're going to have to push this deadline because these things had to happen first. And I didn't realize that. And I think that happens on both ends of the spectrum, both family and life. So I think from a communication standpoint, I communicate my value system really well, but not always great from like an operation side. Um, Something that kind of touching on what you said for me that has been impactful, and I think you catch a lot in literature and kind of the self-help side is or growth side is just that like you really need to find a way to level up the things that you do well and hire for the things that you don't do well.
mm,
Um, and so, yeah, like the last year for us has been heavy in trying to bring people on that are really strong in operations, that really like to get lost in the weeds and the details. It's hard for people who are more vision focused to break this idea down into all the small necessary implemented steps and then follow up and accountability that those things happen. And so I think that that's been a huge hiring spot for us as well.
mm.
And something that we've tried to do better at in the last year to make sure that we can actually, implement this vision that we're trying to implement.
I love that. And I also love that you mentioned that the communication framework and making sure basically that you get buy-in applies both at home and also at work. And then you
Yeah.
mentioned also that there's two key phrases that we have internally based look at our company based on what you said, which is clarity is kindness. How do we make sure that whenever we're communicating with everyone, it's crystal clear because usually it isn't. And that's it's such a
Yeah.
crazy thought to think that. And then you also mentioned that you and your wife have this policy, like how much time is it going to take? We're the same way, right? At the company, it's like, yes, let's do this. Whenever we say we're going to do something new, the question is then at what cost?
Yeah.
At what cost? And it's okay. If we're going to do something, it means that we're replacing something else. And it's such a crazy learning the value of time. So I'm just really happy you brought that up. Okay, so you and your brother, you run this business together and you're talking
Yeah.
about bringing on operational resources. You're talking about how you need operations support to basically bring your vision to life. Do you and your brother have clear roles and responsibilities? Are you both visionaries or is one of you more of an operator? How do you break that up?
Yeah. That it's funny because I know that you're on the EOS system and we are as well. And in that system, it's like one visionary for a company. And that's like a hard and fast rule. And I think that that's something else that we have just grappled with so much over time is like everybody's going to be super passionate about their way because that's how they found success, right? But it's like if you know the success of one company, you know the success of one company. If you look at somebody like Steve Jobs today, they would be a failure by society's metrics as a CEO because they don't have any of the value systems that like society ascribes to now, right? Like there's not a lot of compassion. It's all work. It's go, go, go and hustle, hustle, hustle. But clearly he was successful in his time. And I'm sure he would have figured it out in today's time how to make it work. And so, short answer to your question is I would say we're both visionaries. Yes, we have some clearly defined roles, but that took years to get to for us because we are so freaking similar. And so we would both want to solve the same problems, like you kind of know what you love by the problems you try and solve. I always tell our dentists when they are first starting and they're trying to hone their skill set down, I'm like, look, you know what you're going to be good at when you run into a complication. And instead of getting scared, you get excited
Hmm.
because you're looking forward to solving that problem. It's like, can I do this? Can I fix this? Can I get out of this? And I always say for me, if I'm an endo and I have to break out a 6C file, I'm like, why the hell did I ever take this case on? Like, this is the dumbest problem to be in. I should have never seen this patient. I should have never let them talk me into this. Like, why did I start this case? And that is a good metric for me to say, like, I shouldn't be doing endo because I don't love it. And so I don't do endo anymore. But that same thing exists in business, right? Like, there are problems that you're like, yeah, I want to fix that problem. And then there's problems that you're like, that can wait till tomorrow. And then the next tomorrow. And so we have such similar personalities that we jumped at the same problems quite a bit. And so, yes, now we've done a better job over the past couple of years of really redefining our roles, but it was almost just a natural thing more so than like sit down with the org chart and say like, Colin, you're not doing this anymore. Justin, you're not doing this anymore. So like I take the lead a lot on all things clinical. We say that I'm kind of the chief clinical for our group. Justin takes the lead on all things financial. He's way better at spreadsheets. He's way
Mm.
better at organizing outside of things. And so he's definitely more in our CFO role. Um, and so like when we go through a transition or an acquisition, he's handling so many more things on the front end. It would take me 2 months longer to get it done. So
Mm.
he's making sure shit's closing on time. He's making sure I'm responding to emails. He's like, "Hey, dude, I need you to do this. You didn't do this. I need you to do this." And then once we close, then I come in big on the mentorship side. A lot of times I've been responsible in trying to find the doc that we think is going to be a good fit for this practice. We're both very involved in that in selling vision because we're both so involved in that process. But he's not going to mentor as much on the implant side as I might. And so, like, if we find a dentist that's big in implants, then it's like, okay, we're looking at the start date and we're seeing when am I going to be there? When are we going to take on cases? When are we going to have case review time and things like that? Um, and so then he gets less involved in that. So we have evolved in those roles, but that's given us so much more clarity now to say like, okay, well, where are we falling short? Like, what problems do neither of us like to solve? And then when's our next hire going to be? And how do we bootstrap it until then? Because you don't have some unlimited budget to say like, all right, we're going to bring in a CEO, a CFO, a COO, let's go. It's like, no, we don't have all that. So what are we going to do? You know, decently well now until we've scaled this enough to say, okay, now we have the resources to bring that person on.
That's exactly right. And by the way, I can't wait for you to hire your integrator. It's one of the most life-changing moments. And for our listeners who don't know what EOS is, I think 80% of the people that I've interviewed actually run their practices on EOS. It's called Entrepreneurial Operating System. There's a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. Basically, I learned this framework from an advisor of mine who runs a marketing company about 2 years ago. And it's been the most life-changing thing for 2Front ever because
Yeah.
it basically gives you a framework for how to scale your vision without chaos to the best of your ability. It's really hard to follow. I've read the book 4 or 5 times at this point, and we're constantly updating it and making sure that we can do it. It's like a new alphabet and way of living. And so, what you're mentioning is that you and your brother are both visionaries. By the way, I think I mentioned to you before, I also run the company with my fiance, who's also a visionary. We
Yeah.
also have a third leader of the company who's an integrator. He's 92% integrator. And it is one of the most life-changing things ever to have an integrator. So I cannot wait for you to get your integrator because you're gonna have a lot more meals with your family.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, it is, just to kind of plug into that one more time. And I think that this is something that I have a buddy who implements this at one practice. And I think that whether you're a dentist just running your assistants and you're an associate in a practice or you're an owner of one practice, it's so difficult to organize your thoughts and prioritize the problems that you're going to solve. And when you think of this resource, the thing that it did so much for us is it really quieted a lot of the noise and saying like, we're just going to start here. There's too many other things that we can jump on and pull from. And we used to have these like 8-hour all day meetings. They were exhausting. They sucked. And we still got less done than we do now. But yeah, it's definitely just a mindset framework shift to say like, okay, I'm doing a shit job of this. This is at least how I'm going to start organizing my problems. And then I'll get better and better at it. And then finally start to say like, okay, what's important? What's real? What do I need to solve? And I think that honestly, it works at every level. I mean, so for anybody that might be listening and thinking like, I'm an associate in a practice, like how do you have conversations with your assistants? Because if you just tell your assistant that you want something done better or differently, but there's no, you know, clarity on communication, follow up and accountability measures, etc., then all you've done is just told somebody something you don't like, but you haven't created any
Hmm.
system or framework to actually fix it. So guess what? In another week, you're going to be telling that same person probably what you don't like again. And so, yeah, so EOS really helped us shift in that.
Because that person probably thinks you're just venting, is the truth. And by the way, do you know Wickman's other book, How to Be a Good Boss?
I have not read that one, no.
Okay, for our listeners, that is another life-changing book.
All
It's
right, I'll add it to
basically
the
like
list.
EOS is like the system of like how to accountability, how to grow, how to have your organization thrive and live out your organization's mission and vision. And then how to be a good boss is what I think I read it 2 times at this point, is literally like more detailed communication with your team of how to make sure that anyone that you're leading really understands and you build a great relationship and you're helping build them up. Colin, one thing that you mentioned is that, which I really want to dig into, is that you used to just send an email to get your
Yeah.
organization to follow something. I think what I've seen is that one of the biggest things that people struggle with is actually implementing change at their organization. So, something I've learned is that your organization will change. You can either bring in funding and, do whatever, or you can leverage people or leverage technology, right? Like if you're trying to
Yeah.
grow your organization, better it, create efficiencies, it's people or it's technology. Now that you've had kind of this initial, you know, exploration with like, all right, if the email doesn't work, can you tell us about an example of you implementing a new technology at your practice and what you did differently to get that
Yeah.
implementation?
Yeah. So true. And I think that like to kind of clarify how I view technology, I think that when we think of technology, we often think of like the newest, sexiest piece of technology out there. Um, and that's not always it, right? So a couple really impactful things for us as we've grown and tried to scale is that a lot of the people who you worked with heavily at the very beginning have an intimacy with you that they want you to communicate on this one-to-one manner. And when we
Mm,
started and we had 10 employees and now we're at almost 100 employees, I can't have 100 conversations when we make a change, right? And so we struggled a lot with, well, how do we make it personal so that people know it's coming from us, but not spend time calling this many people? And I think that something that has worked better for us, and I'm not saying it's a perfect solution, but I'll do a lot of videos now. And we have a
mm.
Facebook page for just our office, a closed Facebook page for our office, and we'll post on that so that the entire organization can see. And then we send them to office managers and they send them out to their group chats as well. But if we're going to implement some change that I think might ruffle feathers or bother people, then I'll shoot a video and I'll just tell them the idea behind it. What's the why behind it? Why are we doing it? Let us know the feedback if this isn't working and send it out. I noticed that gets a lot more buy-in than an email because people read into emails with their own brain, right? Whereas like they're getting the tone from me from a video. So that is one thing that has been really helpful, but that's not some like crazy technological tool. Um, Another thing that's funny is we try and survey a lot, and like we do happiness surveys for our teams, we do surveys for our docs on things that we might have upcoming or CE events that we want to do. And I noticed that like if we emailed that out, we got almost zero response. And so just something as stupid and logistical as like, well, how do I create this open survey and text it to people so that it still populates into a Google Forms because we're Google based, and then I can still get the information I need. And then we get like 90%. And so when you say technology, for me, like what that touches on for me is not necessarily like what's the newest thing I bought or thing I implemented, but like how is it the idea that's broken or the implementation and how I've tried to implement that that's broken? And that is where technology has had a big help for us because people still want to know that you're making decisions for the organization and you're trying to lead patient care in a better direction and that this has an impact on that in some way, even if they don't understand why you're changing the system. And so I think that that has helped a lot with buy-in from people, that kind of want to see the words from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So I would say, yeah, immediately top of mind video for me. But I mean, we've thrown around, you know, 1,000 other ideas and apps and creating things, and I think that some of that stuff is useful and will come. But right now, it's just what's the simplest thing we have on our tool set to get this out to the most people and affect the best change.
I mean, I love that. There's 2 things that come to mind for me as you're talking, which is, it's simple. Like, you haven't built an app or anything. There's a saying that we have at our company, which is, "What is this simple, not easy solution?" Because normally, it's not something fancy that gets the job done. It's something simple. It's probably not easy. It's probably not
Yeah.
easy for you to get in front of the camera and record this thing and tell your whole team the
Yeah.
why, but it's effective. You're saying that you got 90% success rate, so it works. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, honestly, I, like, live under a rock, so I discovered who Mr. Beast is a year ago when he released his manifesto. Did you get that when the manifesto
I
leaked?
I didn't. I don't I also live under rocks and and I've heard him come on the scene on some just like podcasts and things that I listen to and like the taglines would be like most successful YouTuber of all time. I was like, who the hell is this guy? And so now I've heard him a
Yep.
lot more, but I don't know anything about his manifesto. No.
Okay, so there I learned something, like, pretty life-changing from him. First of all, this guy's, like, brilliant. He's, like, mid-20s and runs a huge organization. He's just he what I admire about him so much is that he's a master of his craft, which is creating compelling videos, and he's been able to scale it to his organization. Like, basically what
Yeah.
we're doing, right? Like, you're a master of your craft, dentistry, and you're able to scale it through group dentistry without losing quality. And one key thing that he brings up in there that I thought was so important and we've now instilled in our organization is the importance of synchronous communication, meaning the importance of not sending important information on emails or Slack or text
Yeah.
because things get lost in tone. So he actually has a rule at his company where every time something has to be communicated that is like important, you pick up the phone and you call someone and you say, "Does this work for you?" And you get buy-in. And it
Yeah.
feels inefficient because we're living in our phones 14 hours
Yeah.
a day, texting world, but it makes sense, right? People don't know tone. They don't understand urgency. Not everyone's, some people are getting
Yeah.
100 texts a day. So I just thought that was
Yeah.
so effective.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and I think that that is, then continuing to scale from there. It's who do you make those phone calls to, right? Because he's not calling everybody, but he's calling the
Oh,
important
yeah.
people that are going to disseminate his tone and why. And I think that that too, um, has been it's something Justin and I preach to our teams all the time. Is like, don't tell somebody to do something. Tell them why
Mm,
it's important for us to do it, because
yes.
we definitely tend to bring people on board at every level, from dentists down to assistants at every level that say like they're going to work really hard for our teams and for our patients, but they're doing it because they believe in what we're doing, which means that they don't just want to be told to do something. They want to feel a part of
Mhm.
the process. And so they need to understand why you're making their job harder or why you're making something that they used to feel really good and successful at. And now you're making it more difficult. So now they feel less successful doing that same thing, which is uncomfortable for everybody. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
so we're big on that, but it takes so much more energy, you know, to say like, okay, this is what was happening. This is what we didn't like. This is why it wasn't working. This is why we want to change it. This is what we're changing it to. We don't know if that's going to work either, by the way. So we might be changing this again. Um, but don't get pissed off if we do, because it's just because we think that we can do better and we're trying to figure out what that is. But it's so much easier to just tell somebody like, do this. And maybe they will for a while until they lose purpose and then they're done because you just keep telling them to do this so many times they don't know what the hell to do anymore. And that's a really disheartening feeling.
I mean, what you're talking about is something that is like, oh man, I'm literally getting chills as we're talking because I used to be that person that just like gives people, I mean, honestly still am to this day sometimes. And like I had to constantly remind myself like people are not robots. You know,
Yeah.
everyone I hire these people because they're all leaders, every single one. Like it doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you are a leader at this company. And no one wants to be told why. No one wants to be told what to do. Of course. Like
Yeah.
if someone
Yeah.
tells you what to do or me what to do, we're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
why? Why?" And
Yeah.
you're right, it takes more effort. But I think what you're talking about is kind of this crazy transition from this solopreneur or this solo, you're focused on yourself as opposed to being a leader. So I'm curious, you are talking about becoming a leader, becoming a
Mhm.
better leader so that you can instill change in your organization and your company's greater mission. What have been some of those challenging learnings for you? I would love to just hear like any stories about how you figured out that you needed to
Yeah.
become a better leader. What that looked like.
Yeah, for sure. I there's a pivotal kind of story for Justin and I, which is we were taking over our third office, maybe fourth. And we this is such a mix to set the tone. There's such a mix of kind of all facets of life. So, um, it was Labor Day weekend. My daughter's birthday is September 3rd, and my oldest daughter, and so it's always around Labor Day weekend. So we had just closed on this practice. The first operational time period was going to be slightly after Labor Day weekend. Um, we didn't do enough due diligence on the front end to understand exactly what was going on in the practice. We close in the practice, get the keys to the building, go into the building. We start looking through open chores, and it is a freaking nightmare mess. Like, will not let a patient come in here. Everything's expired. There's like blood on stuff in the cabinets. Like, it is disgusting.
Oh my God.
So we get into the first night and survey it, and we're like, all right, this is tomorrow's problem. Go in the next day and we just start cleaning stuff out. And we think that we have an idea of how we're going to get this cleaned out and turned over by the next week. We're calling our rep to get new stuff ordered, etc. And it's midnight, the night before my daughter's birthday, which is Labor Day Monday. And we're sitting there together looking at each other like, what the hell did we get ourselves into? Like, we could not have messed this up anymore if we wanted to. And it's because we failed on so many different processes along the way because we were just looking at the next problem in front of us. And so we're like, we're never doing this again. Like, we have to do better due diligence. We we have to have better systems in place for when we close practices, and then we have to have better operations for when we open back up and turn things around. And so much of that kind of self-reflection, I think, is the leadership side. One of our
Mm,
core values is no egos. And I think that you have to constantly be in a position to say, even if I was successful here, that doesn't mean I was right. And so we got lucky, right, with our first 3 or 4 transitions. And that gives this false sense of, I know what I'm doing. And then you hit this roadblock and you need to reevaluate everything and say, just because I was, successful in the last one doesn't mean I was right. And so, yeah, I mean, pivotal learning experience for us for sure, and definitely helped to make us better leaders. But we still have that learning experience in different ways. Um, we were constantly failing forward and learning different things that we didn't know by having to deal with a certain problem, whether it's HR issues or dentist issues or marketing issues. Like, it's I think constantly part of that leadership journey for us has been, okay, what do we not know? Is this something that we can solve, or we need to bring somebody in to help us solve? Is this time or money that's going to fix this? But yeah, I think that you know so much of the leadership journey is realizing that you're not as good as you hoped or thought you were, and that you need to keep getting better, and you need to be obsessed with getting better. And if you really like that, if you look at every problem and every challenge as like, this is another opportunity for me to level up, then it's a fun journey. If you don't, then the whole thing freaking sucks, and it's just going to beat you down every day. And Justin and I love the grind. Like, we always say that to each other, and we apologize to our teams all the time because, like, we'll close a practice and we're terrible about celebrating. So this Friday is going to happen, and everybody's like, we're at 10. And we're like, let's fucking go. Like, yes, we're at 10. Let's grind. Because for us, that's the enjoyment. Um, and that's important for people that are around us to know, like, we're going to hug you and kiss you and love you and tell you you're awesome. But we don't celebration in that sense is not a huge part of our journey. It's not what fills us up. But that's why being with family is so important to me, because there's nobody I'd rather grind with than my brother or my wife in solving these problems together. And so to be able to spend that time investment and grind with the people I love the most, fills two parts of my cup, right? Because I'm doing it with the people I love the most. Same thing with you and your fiance. Like it's hard to separate maybe work and play, but like what fills your purpose up the most, right? Like those are the things you spend the
100%.
most time doing. So do them with the people you freaking love, because why not? Like, let's grind. Let's go. This is awesome.
I love that so much. I literally tell everyone, it is a life hack. It is a life hack. Do what you love with the people you love. Do what you love with the people you love. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing better. Like, there's no, to your point of starting earlier this conversation, there's no work-life balance really if you do
Yeah.
what you love with the people you love. And I really love what you just ended on. I just want to emphasize it one more time, which is just recognizing that you're not going to be good at things and you're going to be bad at things every single day. And if you don't have an ego about it, it's gonna be fun, and if you're hurt and, like, you wanna be right, it's gonna be miserable. Like, it's gonna be
Yeah.
absolutely miserable, so I think it's such an important lesson, so thank you for hopping on. This has been
Yeah.
so fun. Where can people
Appreciate it.
find you?
Yeah, so my email is colin.barbaro@barbarodg.com. Happy to email us. You can look at our website, barbarodentalgroup.com as well, and there's ways to reach out to us there as well. I'm not big on social media, so you probably won't find me there. I do have a LinkedIn account, but I'm not super active on most social media sides of things. Something I hope to get better at, or hire somebody to help me get better at. But yeah, feel free to reach out if something we said resonated with you, and if we can help you be a part of your journey. That's been so much of this fun thing, and even just meeting you, Ingrid, and talking to you is just like, I feel confident our paths will cross again, whether that's on a business side of things or just a personal side, and what you're struggling with. It's just another fun part of this journey is the camaraderie of solving the same types of problems that other people are solving, and realizing that you're not alone. And so yeah, so happy to tell you some of the lessons that I've learned the hard way, if it bails anybody out of a problem.
Oh my god, the relationships piece is the absolute best. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, thank you again, and I will see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Ingrid. Have a good one. Thanks so much.